I became the most prominent activist, I guess, in my city and in my communities, working with everyone. We had lots of different campaigns. We passed the first ban against bottled water in Canada. Myself and the group of people and that I worked with, anarchists, just all kinds of very liberal people, professors, broad swath of people. We did a great big campaign to try to phase out drive-throughs back when climate change was becoming an issue. And that turned into like a huge thing right across Canada. And it turned out the restaurant industry hired a team of lawyers flying all over Canada trying to stop our movement from being taken up in other cities. The United Nations Conference of the Parties, 2009, COP15 in Copenhagen. So that's I went to that and I came back. And actually, when I came back there was police on my doorstep asking me questions about a protest we were having the next day or a couple of days after that. And yeah, around that time, that's when I stepped back and started writing about what I was seeing as a person involved with all the groups. I mean, involved with, just all of them, all the big ones that you know of, 350 at that time. A big one that came out was Tick, Tick, Tick. The United Nations created the Green New Deal in 2009. And then remember, there's that huge bailout. And they said openly at the time it was to monetize nature, that it was to create economic growth because the whole global economy was stagnant and about to collapse back at that time. Then they had the huge bailout, and then that went away for a while, right? And they continued to work on how do we monetize nature? How do we assign price to every blade of grass and plant and every single thing on the planet? And so year after year, they built on that. They brought in finance, accountants, how to figure out that system. But then they relaunched it. Like Abaz was actually doing polling on the Green New Deal back in 2009. They were polling on that, and that was a thing. And then it went away. They fine-tuned everything, and now here it is again. In September last year, the UN put out a document, Global Green New Deal. It's a huge document. Very quietly, it comes out at the United Nations. Hardly anybody covers it. Oh, what's her name? Alexandra, everyone calls her AOC Cortez. She keeps talking about the Green New Deal, Green New Deal. She was at the C40 City Global Summit last September. They're on stage. They had a media release talking about the Global Green New Deal. Global Green New Deal. But in her Twitter feed, in media, no, she never presents it as global. It's like a Green New Deal for her people that she's working on. Avaz promotes it, Greenpeace promotes it. They're all on board with it. They're all promoting it with campaigns that actually never really mention the word, never really say what it is. You really have to start becoming media literate and learn how to keywords and how things are framed. Language. So yeah, Greta, XR, they never mention the New Deal for Nature. They never speak out against it. It's supported by the United Nations, all the UN affiliated, the Convention of Biological Diversity, UN is behind it. WWF, one of the most notorious, worst NGOs in the world, responsible for deaths of Indigenous people, torture, rape. They're behind it. These are the people, okay? These are the organizations in the movement responsible for killing and death and rape and torture.
And I'd like to point our listeners to your campaign site, No Deal for Nature, because you've got some fantastic resources on the site there, a number of documentaries. I think there's about 4, which a couple about WWF that share what's been happening on the ground, WWF and Indigenous cultures, and also around the financialization of nature.
Yeah,
so it'd be helpful to connect the dots for me to watch those.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of information, but it's all fascinating, and you'll feel really empowered, like learning about all this. So in October, they want to pass it's called New Deal for Nature. It's a deal for capitalists, a deal for Wall Street. They want to monetize nature, global in scale. So everything will be, basically, they say what you can't measure, you can't manage. So everything will be monetized, traded. You know, their own scientists say things like those with money will own nature. John Elkington, I believe his name is, from Volans. You know, he says, who will be the Bill Gates of ecosystem services? You know, what's that telling you? Who will be the Bill Gates of ecosystem services? Who will own the skies? Who will, you know, who it's the commodification of nature, the monetization, to be traded, bought, sold, enslavement of nature. And everyone's on board. Avaz, like I said, Avaz is behind it, Greenpeace is behind it, World Wildlife Fund, they're all part and parcel. Friends of the Earth, you can't find it. Club of Rome, right? Club of Rome is a big one, which was one of the initial people they work with. We Don't Have Time, who was the person that put Greta out on social media, the very first tweet, and our Rentshog. So, you know, you can see everything's interwoven, all the groups all interwoven together. This person's here. Anyway, back to the New Deal for Nature, probably the very, very best person to read a lot of what's behind it is Clive Spash. He's an ecologist, economist, and he's been brilliant on it. Probably one of the only people that haven't, you know, sold out going along. Yeah, so it's all these things coming forward. Digitalization of healthcare, and telehealth, mHealth, digitalization of healthcare, automation of jobs. We just saw job loss is huge. Half the people in the world will lose their jobs. Okay, so data is the new oil. All life, your life, my life, we've become human capital, data commodities. Nature will be a portfolio of natural capital, all on the blockchain ledger. Everything's becoming like this is capitalism. This next, okay, so the capitalists basically figured out how to have okay, so for centuries, capitalists, ruling classes stole the labor, right, from the working class. They stole the labor, they all became billionaires, everything's stealing the labor, everyone knows this, of the working classes. But now they found a way to replace the humans, right? So now basically they will make money off our data, and they will have us conform to the system, like we'll become completely compliant, for instance. And I have to say right now, the work of Alison McDowell to understand the blockchain and the smart contracts and how that will demand compliance to the system, even how New Deal for Nature, how nature will be all put into the blockchain. Alison McDowell is an independent research, a lot like myself. She just got into it. I forget how, I think through teaching. Anyway, she does a superb job of laying all this out. Also, Wrong Kind of Green has a primer on what blockchain is, what AI is, artificial intelligence, blockchain, how we, every time we use data, how it's becoming more and more clever. Anyway, all about that. For instance, Greta Thunberg, Jane Goodall, and David Attenborough are the #1 influencers for the World Economic Forum. And there's actually a video of them marketing the Voice for the Planet, which is the sister campaign for New Deal for Nature. So, I mean, everyone's like up to here, you know, in their interwoven relationships and partnerships with the ruling class and corporate power.
Mm.
It's just we have to start again going back to our communities, creating real movements, real resistance based on defending the land, based on protecting the water, based on alliances with our sisters and brothers of the global south. It's not just about us. It's not just about maintaining our lifestyles that actually don't even nurture us or keep us happy. We can't depend on anyone else. It's up to us. There's no one that's going to come and save us, no one. So we do it or we don't. We're going to organize together and try to stop that, at least try, or we're not. So this is it. I mean, we've got not even a year. I just want to plug, because I don't work on it myself. There's a girl in our campaign that's amazing. She works really hard, Geraldine. Anyway, she looks after the No Deal for Nature Twitter account. And so, yeah, people can follow that and help share the information.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.